First story. How about this mess? I, 44 am, and my whatever-we-are partner, 44F, initially met as teenagers, experiencing a fleeting connection that, while brief, left an indelible mark on me. Years later, fate intervened through social media, reuniting us against the backdrop of our significantly evolved lives, each marked by our own struggles and scars. Our rekindled relationship was a passionate yet tumultuous affair, oscillating between moments of deep connection and painful separations. I, recently diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, was quick to trust in the beginning when she assured me as a registered nurse she would understand the challenges that came with it, which she did in the beginning, but eventually that stopped. Though I was not sharing well as an employee for others but apprehensive to accept a full labeling of myself as a disabled person, I attempted to go all in on opening a business that was a record store and music recording studio, and also the home base for my musical career pursuits. At the same time, I was reaching a point where it was becoming obvious that alcohol was contributing to the lessening of my quality of life. Though I did not realize she was concealing a secret, but rapidly accelerating problems with opiate addiction. We also came from very different upbringings and financial lifestyle histories, and I and everyone else around us noticed the very different standard of living while cohabitating that she would implement on the resources and expectations of her children, compared to mine. All of these issues compiled would lead to quite a series of breakups and reconciliations. These were not just emotionally draining but physically uprooting, affecting not only us but our children as well. Despite these challenges, the birth of our son in July 2018, diagnosed with severe autism, added a new dimension of both joy and challenge to our lives. My own battle with MS, leading to disability, paralleled by her secret worsening struggles with drug use, legal repercussions, and a career shift, each event weaving into the fabric of our shared existence. During this time, I made a conscious decision to quit drinking, a choice that marked a significant personal milestone. However, amidst these tumultuous events, I've noticed a shift in her behavior towards me. The affection and interests that once attracted our interaction waned, leaving me feeling undervalued and disconnected. I recall a time when she seemed more drawn to me, particularly when I embraced a bad boy attitude. But as I showed more vulnerability and kindness, her interest appeared to diminish, suggesting an attraction to the chase rather than to who I genuinely am. Then the COVID pandemic hits, and I close my business and go on full disability. Well, at the same time, she reaches a very serious breaking point where her narcotic usage secrets become known, and intervention leads to her moving back with her parents with our son to get into treatment, which to my knowledge she has successfully done, beating the odds. Unfortunately, her weekends of coming to stay with me bringing our son became fewer and more far between as time went on. She just started making excuses every weekend for why she couldn't come. When I would call her out on the obvious distance and detachment, she would tell me I was crazy and continued to assure me for the next year and a half that we were together. And I was just paranoid. And she was just so busy with her new job and with our disabled son, which are both things I believed because they are plausible, but my gut told me there was something else underlying. Her daughter would come stay with me sometime with my daughters and one time mentioned that she thought her mom had been on a date with a guy, and I told her she was quite mistaken. However, all of her mom's behavior pointed to it being a good possibility, but I was gaslighted for a year and a half until finally I decided I wanted to know what was really going on, and with a little bit of easy investigating, was able to uncover the truth which she denied up until the very last second, thought she was still going to be able to get away with it. Unfortunately, for her, I am a bit hard to pull one over on when I decide to actually give something my attention, prepared to find the truth good or bad, so I would get little bit of trickle truth. I find out she was on dating apps and claims to have went on a single date with an attorney that ended in her inside of his house, though she claims nothing happened. My intuition tells me that there was some sort of sexual interaction, though she will probably deny this like everything else until there's no possible way to refute evidence I could come up with. Despite all of this, I've tried to not write the relationship off, even though she has claimed to be willing, but done absolutely zero to reassure me or offer any type of transparency, or even attempt to make any effort to spend time with me, or prioritize me in any way. Only when I have told her that my aunt needs we are leading me to feel compelled to move on did she say she wanted to go to counseling. In response, I've attempted to navigate this change with openness, expressing my desire for reconnection while striving to maintain a balance that avoids seeming desperate. Despite these efforts, the lack of engagement has left me confused and seeking strategies to rekindle the spark between us. I contemplate adopting a more detached demeanor to pique her curiosity, perhaps reigniting her interest, amidst considering how to subtly showcase my value and hint at attention from others. My primary goal remains clear: to find a genuine path to reconnect without resorting to games or manipulation. This endeavor reflects my broader journey through a relationship's highs and lows, seeking to understand how best to communicate, remain true to myself, and navigate the complex emotions of wanting to feel valued and desired once again. Our history, marked by love, challenges, and the pursuit of understanding, continues to shape my reflections on how to rejuvenate a connection that once burned so brightly. This journey is not just about rekindling a flame but about finding a way to sustain it, respecting our past while navigating the future with integrity and authenticity. But, like I'm sure most of you know all too well, I feel I'm just being a sucker. I feel I deserve to know the actual truth about what actually happened. I feel she's really not showing me the value partners should hold in the person they respect and care for. I guess what I'm saying is, I don't fucking know what the hell to do. Second story. Fiancé, 43F, asked me, 49M, for $30,000 then cheated or scammed. Hi, I'd like an opinion on whether this was a scam from day one or it became a recent scam or something else was going on. My fiancé, 43F, and I, 52M, been together 2.5 years. We met on an international dating site. She's from South America and I'm from the USA, and we would meet every 3 months halfway between us, Cancun, Aruba. I paid for all these trips, which were expensive, $5,000 to $8,000 a pop. She had a fiancé visa pending at the US Embassy. In the first year we discussed filing a fiancé visa. I hesitated on this and told her why. It was too soon, but her family was unsure I could be trusted. Ultimately I filed the visa. I met her family by video and one brother in person. All this time I never doubted her intentions were real, because we would talk each day by video. Even she took video calls at work. I didn't mind paying for trips BC on her salary, $1,600 a month. A single plane ticket to Cancun, $600, can be hefty. She also paid for plane tickets within her country to get to her departure airport. She was also okay with staying at Airbnb and making breakfast there to save money. Still, a $20 lunch would have been nice, a sign of reciprocation. At one point I mentioned why she didn't contribute anything to trips, and she got angry saying BC she was beautiful, and I wasn't. I should pay. I walked away then, but we reconciled that night when she apologized. I should have broken up then and there. During one of our trips, she said she was $30,000 in debt for a house she wanted to buy in her home country. This struck me as real because she had said many times before her family there did not own a house, and they lost a home when their parents divorced. She explained she would need to pay this debt to replace her pension, which she would lose if she came to the USA. I explained this was a lot of money. and I would need to sell stocks to give it BC. I don't keep this amount of money in my account. And $30,000 was a lot, so maybe I could give $20,000. When we got home, she asked when I would send the money. I asked how much she needed and she said $43,000. I said that's not what we discussed. She said that's what she needed, but that I had agreed to $30,000. I said no, we discussed $20,000, so we were back to $20,000. I felt newly uneasy about this. I had already agreed to fund her education and other expenses here, which would be $40,000 easy over 2 years. There was also the trip expenses, probably $60,000 over 2.5 years. And all of a sudden she seemed to be fishing for more money, and to pay debt for a house in her home country when she was supposed to be coming here. Also, little things about the trip felt slightly off. For instance, she bought no little gift for me, as she usually does, but did buy gifts for her co-workers. She also bought a lighter, which was curious to me. BC, I smoke and she doesn't, and I know her co-workers smoke. But she said she bought the lighter. BC, it was interesting. I guess it was an interesting design, but still. Then the last day, instead of spending private quality time, as we usually do on the last trip, she wanted to go to the beach 2 times and the movies that night. So I tell her the trip felt a bit off, and as for the money, I can't because I realized I have to fund her education expenses here. She was very upset, and the next day tells me she was so upset she lost her wallet with $350 and ID cards. She shows me a receipt to replace the ID cards. I say okay, if it's an emergency I can send money, $5,500. I say $500 to replace what you lost, plus some, and $5,000 for the house debt, right? She said we already discussed the house and didn't want to talk about it. However, I had trouble wiring money, so I contact her sister in the USA for tips, explaining there was a $43,000 need and I'm trying to wire $5,000. I get a text message from my fiancé immediately after asking to delete the messages and that she never asked for money. She said to delete the messages now, or else she will contact my family. For what I don't know. My reasoning is that the sister didn't know about $43,000 in debt, but asking to delete messages seemed fishy. I then ran her credit report and it showed she had taken out $100,000 in lines of credit over the last year and paid back $70,000. How, I have no idea, as her yearly salary was $18,000. Though maybe she gets a bonus, $20,000, and help from family. Still. Anyhow, things get back to normal and we agree not to talk to family. She says it was immature to call the sister. She talks of getting photos done for the visa. Then one night I'm asking about the house, how it's going, and ask where her father lived. She erupts. She says she knows she had not talked to her father in 7 years BC. He abused her mother. I explain I needed this info for the visa. I do. But she's irate and calls for me to reflect on the relationship. During the next 2 weeks I send her a series of reflections. We don't have video calls at all during this period. Discussion centers around broken promises, including the apartment, my quitting smoking, which she had been pushing some time, and her being assured I can financially support her here. I send her a budget with income and offer to show her a W-2. And I offer to quit smoking on the next trip. All the while she mentions wanting to be with a mature man who can financially support her and threatens breakup. None of what I offer is good enough. Desperate, I decide to send her another $5,000. My reasoning is that $5,000 is easy to replace a fiancé now. I say I know not all is money, but this is one step I can do now to fulfill promises. She immediately replies, let's talk tonight, but she later cancels, saying she doesn't feel well and promises to talk the next night. The next night comes and nothing. The next day I get a message from an unknown number in South America. Guy says he's her wife, to stop sending money, and if I keep talking he's gonna come to the USA to hurt me. I reply, oh really? How long you've been married? No reply. I believe a husband to be fake BC. All my fiance's free time was spent with me, but reason it could be a new boyfriend or a jealous coworker. Or it could be her just trying to convince me to break up. Meanwhile, the fiancé still keeps promising to talk but never does. The guy is some jowl where we're talking and again threatens to hurt me. My family becomes frightened, so I send him a message saying fine, just return the money I lent. Meanwhile, throughout these 2 weeks I'm sleeping and eating very little, upset and in a brain fog. Can't function well. More text messages from the guy. Cryptic messages from her like hi 20 minutes after text message from him. So I text the sister and attach the messages and say I'm getting these weird messages and my fiancé won't talk. I tell sister I'm worried she's with someone dangerous and that I had wired money. Fiancé then writes me how immature I am to call sister. Says how ironic that she thought an older man was more mature when life shows that is not true. I explained to her what state I was in. Sleeping and eating little, in tears, total brain fog. She wasn't talking to me, so what could I do? And ask her to explain the messages. I attach screenshots. Is it a coworker? I ask, who is it? Any idea? And if she met someone else it's okay. She accuses me of inventing stories. Says stop. Stop. In response to my mention of text messages, builds a case that BCI said we were together 4 years, when it was actually 2.5. I must be inventing everything. Mentions I have back problems too, an odd throw-in. Said she had to face her family with shame. I say I suspect you cheated. She said how dare you accuse me of cheating on you for revenge. Note revenge are her words, not mine. Anyhow, we are finished and she has agreed to pay back the $10,000 in monthly installments. Said the $5,000 I sent 4 days ago is no longer there and she doesn't want to go into details. Curious to me, she took this money and spent it without a word to me. I toss and turn at night wondering what might have happened if I had sent the $20,000 as promised. If I never called the sister, I wonder if she would still be with me or was just scamming for 2.5 years. Update. Scam from day one. Thoughts. I paid for all trips, except flights in her country to her home airport. If anything, she gets free trips. However, what indicates to me it was not a scam from day one is that she spent all her free time with me. We had video calls every day, including at her work. I met her family, etc. She was not out of the country except with me for the 2.5 years together. Otherwise I would have seen that on a video call. She pressed for a visa, and her mother is supposed to be coming here too. $10,000 is a little to get out of all the time effort she put into a 2.5-year relationship. Though she did get the trips, clothes, and a huge portfolio of photos from about 5 different European countries, 5 islands in the Caribbean, as well as Costa Rica. Recent scam thoughts. The problem really started after she asked for $30,000. We settled on $20,000. That jumped to $43,000, and I texted her sister, because my fiancé asked me to delete text messages to her sister after this, and said she never asked me to send money, and never asked for $43,000, all of which are blatant lies. As I have screenshots of her text messages, I tend to think this was some kind of recent scam. Perhaps she just realized or gave up hope at some point that she would ever come here and decided to use me to support her life in South America. But she could have just wanted to hide debt from her sister. Who knows? Recent scam. Plus, she simply found someone else to lend $30,000. Maybe she really needed the money. The credit report did show $30,000 in debt, roughly consistent with what she told me on our trip, although these were lines of credit that don't need to be paid immediately. She was very upset my $20,000 didn't arrive. Said I had damaged her and the relationship, but later said not to worry about sending the money because she had already solved the problem. But then later she kept pushing me to send money to fulfill my promises, but also added in another promise was to quit smoking. If she was just concerned about the money, she could have hopped on a phone call and buttered me up. But I sense at this point she was evaluating me against someone she was seeing, hence no video calls for 2 weeks. Who would cough up more money, fulfill their promises,